Ubisoft shut down XDefiant after promising they wouldn't, as player numbers plummet. From Young Yeah.
Another day, another dead AAA live service. Why am I not surprised? This time the form of XDefiant, which launched back in May 21st, 2024, and it'll be sunsetting not even a year after its launch. As you can see right here, the critical reception surrounding the game was fairly meager.
I don't know what this game is. I've never seen footage for it. I've never heard of anybody playing it. I've seen the name and I've seen the title bar on Steam, and that is it.
At launch, it's basically Ubisoft's take on an experience akin to Call of Duty, and it did see...
And people already don't like Call of Duty very much.
Good initial results, with XDefiant hitting 1 million unique players within 2.5 hours of launch, and that number eventually did escalate to around 8 million unique players in a week. But unfortunately, the game could not sustain such numbers. While the game did help with early 2024 financial success, this game would eventually become more of a burden for Ubisoft, having to maintain a live service with the lower player retention and the lower player spending that it would eventually suffer. And so on August of 2024, Insider Gamer reported that XDefiant is on borrowed time as player numbers decline rapidly.
Are you telling me that microtransactions aren't working anymore? I'm seeing less and less like mainstream games put microtransactions in their games, and I'm loving it. Seeing less stores than ever in the actual single player games. Love it. We need more of that.
Based on what they were told by their sources. So scrolling down, you can see that internally, optimism for the game has shifted primarily due to the game's continuously declining player numbers and lack of player spending. One source told me that the game has been struggling to obtain 20,000 concurrent players across all of its platforms. And even more grim was what another source said, quote, Ubisoft would probably be happy with that number. So 20,000 concurrent players across all platforms is already not a good sign for a free-to-play live service, but things are so bad that this source said that low number that's kind of risky for a live service like this would be better than what the game is actually experiencing currently, suggesting that numbers were actually even worse than the 20,000 concurrent players across all platforms. So declining numbers have created tension and anxiety within the team, with sources who spoke to me believing that...
Wait, 28,000 across all platforms? I thought that was just the Steam numbers. No, that's across all platforms? Damn. This company's done. This company is done.
That more layoffs are only a matter of time. This prediction would indeed become reality, with matters not helped by the fact that apparently XDefiant's development was marred by a toxic work culture, by crunch, and years of delay. And then eventually Ubisoft itself began to admit...
But you gotta have diversity, equity, and inclusion.
The reality surrounding this struggling live service, reporting during a financial briefing that XDefiant has fallen behind expectations. But despite the writing being on the wall, Ubisoft continued to insist that the game is absolutely not dying. This was what was posted in a blog post for XDefiant, where they quite literally used the words, "The game is absolutely not dying." But Insider Gaming kind of reported the reality of the situation, saying it kind of is dying. Today, the player count is wavering, the sentiment around the game has faded, and viewership on social and streaming platforms is slim to nothing. This was just 2.5 months ago, by the way, on September 18th, 2024, when executive producer on XDefiant, Mark Rubin, insisted that the game was absolutely not dying. A month later, on October 15th, 2024, he doubled down on this insistence, stating, quote, "To be crystal clear, there are no plans to shut down after Season 4. I've literally been in meetings as of last..."
Bro, if you're trying to tell people, hey, there's no plans to shut down, we're not going to shut down, we think you're going to shut down.
Week to discuss our year 2 plans, which was contrary to what Tom Henderson reported on Insider Gaming by saying that XDefiant is on borrowed time. And so he got a lot of flack for reporting on that after Mark insisted that there's going to be no shutdown. But turns out Tom Henderson was 100% on the money. And that finally brings us to December 3rd, 2024, when Tom Henderson could definitively say that Ubisoft's XDefiant will be shutting down in June of 2025. And he specifically called out the way Mark Rubin has been misleading his community into a false sense of security. Sorry to get a little emotional here, but to see good, hardworking people lose their jobs when it could have been avoided is fucking diabolical. Just so you all know, he's lied to you every step of the way, and fuck Ubisoft management for not listening. Referring to Mark Rubin,
this Assassin's Creed game better be good, or I think Ubisoft is going to be done.
constant assurances to the community and to the developers that XDefiant would not die, that it had long legs ahead. Now, you know what else is diabolical? Shady third-party entities using your personal information for nefarious purposes. Which brings us to the sponsor of today's video, Delete Me, a subscription service dedicated to keeping your personal information personal.
I hate them.
Delete your name, media, you.
They don't do anything in their scams.
Find all of this in the description and comment section below. All right, so let's dive into the nitty-gritty details of this live service shutdown. Right here is the report from Tom Henderson, who reported from several sources that Ubisoft will be shutting down XDefiant in June of 2025. This is something that employees found out about in an internal all-hands meeting, and apparently this was a decision that was made due to poor player numbers and a lack of player spending, which should surprise no one, as those tend to be the reasons why a company would decide to shut down a live service that they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on. As far as layoffs go, that
tends to be a trend recently, that games that they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on and they expect to do amazingly well, like phenomenally well, end up phenomenally failing.
Begin in February, and around 277 people are expected to lose their jobs, with 2 Ubisoft studios, Ubisoft San Francisco and Osaka, closing their doors. So yeah, for the developers, this is pretty devastating stuff. And then in terms of what players can expect, Season 3 will be coming out for XDefiant, but it will be the last season for the game, and for the remainder of the game's lifespan up until June of 2025, a skeleton crew...
Well, I guess he didn't lie about one thing. It's not shutting down after Season 4. It's shutting down after Season 3.
We will be maintaining the game. The article also details Ubisoft having plans to issue refunds for players who meet specific conditions. Those details I'll share with you when we take a look at Ubisoft's statement on this matter, which you can find on Ubisoft's official website in this blog post titled Our Message to Players. Here it is detailed that starting December 3rd, 2024, XDefiant will begin its sunsetting process, which means that new downloads, player registrations, and purchases will be closed off entirely. The game will be playable for a while longer, but once we hit June 3rd, 2025, the game servers will shut down and the game will be completely inaccessible. And with the lack of any sort of preservation initiative, this is yet another game that will be lost forever and will disappear from the face of the planet. And then right here we have details on refunds. Those who purchase the Ultimate Founders Pack will be issued a full refund, and then players who have made VC and DLC purchases from November 3rd, 2024 onwards will also be fully refunded. But outside of that, you will not receive refunds. Now, this is not a Concord type of situation where the game shut down just weeks after launch. It is shutting down roughly a year after its release. So it's not surprising that they're not issuing refunds across the board. But for these specific conditions that are met, you will be getting your money.
I think that's a bunch of crap, because these people bought this game thinking that it was going to be a live service. It was going to continue going. And they were lied to. They deserve refunds too. This is not a good look for Ubisoft at all. And everything is already a bad look for them. This is just it's just cherry on the cherry on top of the shake. There's icing on top of the cake.
Back. And this will all happen automatically. You'll have to wait roughly 8 weeks for these refunds to be processed, but you can expect some money back if you happen to buy VC and DLC after November 3rd, and if you happen to get the Ultimate Founders Pack. VC referring to XDefiant's currency here, and DLC referring to stuff like the XDefiant Gold Pack, the Starter Pack, and the Combat Pack. Ubisoft also confirms here that Season 3 will be the final content launch for XDefiant, after which no additional content will be added to the game. And so yeah, this is news that has made quite a few headlines, in large part because of assurances that the game would not be shutting down, and then out of the blue, we learned that the game is in fact shutting down. You can see how much traction the news has gained, millions of views and tens of thousands of interactions surrounding this announcement that really shouldn't shock anyone who's been keeping track of the development surrounding XDefiant, but very contrary to, again, assurances made by Ubisoft and by Mark Rubin. Speaking of Mark, here is his personal statement on all of this. I won't read all of it.
Bro, for this game to have succeeded, it not only had to have been almost, like, it didn't have to be as good as Call of Duty, but it had to be up there. But it also had to beat Counter-Strike and Rainbow Six and even Halo.
But he did express his gratitude towards the development team, and he did talk about how their goal was to try to shake up the genre of first-person shooter by removing skill-based matchmaking and go for a more old-school arcade shooter experience, and how he tried to delve into the high-risk, high-reward realm of free-to-play, but that ultimately didn't pan out because it just wasn't garnering the traction that it needed for it to be able to be maintained in the long term. In the statement, he recognizes all of the developers who he highlights are, each and every one of them, real people with a real life, and he also flaunted some of the successes.
Okay, that means nothing to me. If there are people that are working on something that, like, I don't care that a bunch of people that were pouring water into a glass, pouring water into other glass, lost their job. That's basically what happened here. Like, it sucks. That's not what they were trying to do, but that's what Ubisoft had them doing. And they'll find jobs somewhere else if they're good at their job.
Surrounding the game, especially during the launch period when they broke internal records for the fastest game to surpass 5 million users within Ubisoft, and how they had garnered over 15 million players to play their game. And he also highlighted the importance of maintaining an open, honest communication between developers and players, and how they aimed for a player-first mentality, which are all nice sentiments, but ultimately don't make up for the fact that XDefiant tried to delve into an oversaturated market, one that is dominated by the likes of Call of Duty and Fortnite and you name it, and utterly failed to make a long-term impact, even if the initial results looked good, for it to maintain itself as a free-to-play experience where the only source of income is player spending, recurrent player spending on the micro and macro transactions. With their failure to be able to do that, and with them launching a game that ultimately failed to compete with similar games of the genre, it all resulted in the inevitable downfall of yet another AAA live service that just really couldn't stand out enough from the pack. From
Ubisoft has no idea what they're doing, ever. We know what players want. We know what they need. We got to push this agenda because our fan base, screw the old fan base, they're a bunch of racist, bigoted morons. We're going to make our own thing. We're gonna make our own stuff, and they end up just copying everybody else, and it ends up being garbage and falling apart. And then they blame us for it, but they haven't blamed us for this one yet. But I guarantee there are people online who are blaming people like me for this game failing, even though I had no idea it existed.
The current norms as far as this particular genre of live service is concerned. And that led to a very familiar story and circumstance. We have seen so many live services die just in the last year alone. If you look at the last 5 years, how many live services...
Woo! I cannot wait to see all these live services just completely fail. One by one, they tumble down.
Has died due to similar circumstances. It's honestly hard to keep track of them all. And as far as Ubisoft is concerned, you got XDefiant, you got Skull and Bones, which is failing, and you also got the Battle Royale game, Hyperspace, I believe it was called. So time and again, Ubisoft has output failure after failure when it comes to live services. They hit gold with...
And now Assassin's Creed's gonna be a live service, even though it's single player. And you're not allowed to mod it. No mods.
Rainbow Six Siege, and For Honor, they've managed to kind of bring back as well. But that aside...
Wait. What kind of game is XDefiant? I don't even know. Like, I thought maybe it was Call of Duty clone. Somebody tell me what XDefiant is. Is it a Rainbow Six clone? What kind of game is this? I don't even know. He didn't tell me in this video. I just know it's a first-person shooter.
It's just been one failed endeavor after another, and it's becoming more and more difficult as the live service market gets more and more oversaturated. So maybe it's time to put the brakes on live services and just ship games whose intention aren't recurrent monetization, but to just provide a memory.
How about some Xbox 360 sized games and make them $30? That's all I fucking want. That's all I need. I don't care about these hundreds of $1 million games that I have to pay $100 plus to get the full experience. How about just a $30 Xbox 360 style game?
Memorable interactive experience at a reasonable budget, sold at a reasonable cost, so that profit margins are all across the board reasonable. I think Andy Cortez put it aptly here when highlighting the competition that XDefiant has.
Record Crew says, unknown for a reason, I'm guessing. Yep, I had no idea what this was. And there was another game they mentioned, like Hyperspace from Ubisoft. That's their Battle Royale game. Don't know what that is. Never heard of it.
Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite, Counter-Strike, Apex Legends, Overwatch 2, Valorant, its own Rainbow Six Siege, and recently Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which, you know, frickin' broke records for the Call of Duty franchise and for Activision Blizzard, and it was actually a Call of Duty game that was just overwhelmingly well received. So yeah, I mean, XDefiant, with the critical reception that it received, and with it not doing anything particularly exceptionally compared to the competition or doing things better than the competition or providing something really revolutionary or unique.
Yeah, they just shit out a game. That's all they did. They just shit out. They're like, this is big money. It's like everything else. It's like the popular things.
It was bound to suffer this fate. And it sucks for the developers that they were led astray by leadership that put all of these chips and all of these eggs into a basket that basically had a hole underneath. And so you've got folks like Antonio here, a developer who worked on XDefiant, whose dream was to work with AAA companies like Ubisoft, announcing his departure and suffering the consequences of leadership. I think another reason why this comes as such a surprise is because Ubisoft has had rough live service launches before that they stuck to until they made a recovery. Rainbow Six Siege had an incredibly rough launch, but Ubisoft stuck with it. Same with For Honor, and now they've become really stable as recurrent revenue makers. And so XDefiant not getting a similar treatment must signify that the losses that XDefiant incurred as a free-to-play game that was costly to maintain must have been substantial. Though I'm also surprised that they didn't at least attempt the move of bringing XDefiant to Steam. I think one of their biggest mistakes was keeping XDefiant exclusive to the Ubisoft launcher.
How could you be so stupid? How could you be so stupid? We gotta put our games on our launcher to get people to use our launcher. But then they don't realize that nobody's using their launcher. So nobody's playing their games, even if they're good. Even if they're good games, nobody has no idea because everybody's using like 5 different launchers already, and they don't want to use the one from Ubisoft, the Far Cry and Assassin's Creed company.
And not spreading their audience base through the vast community that is Steam. Somebody actually predicted that XDefiant not launching on Steam is going to kill the game. I don't believe it's the sole reason why the game died, but I don't think not launching on Steam helped its fate either. But just in general, it's been a rough year for Ubisoft. Star Wars Outlaws underperformed sales-wise, and it launched in a technically not ideal state, so a lot of fixing is going on for the game right now.
Technically not ideal. You mean garbage? You mean broken? I tried to play it and it didn't even work. I couldn't even get it to launch.
Assassin's Creed Shadows was supposed to launch this year, but it got pushed back to beyond 2024. It'll launch in 2025 now. They've got NFT endeavors that are failing. Their stock price is plummeting. And not too long ago, there were reports that things are so bad for Ubisoft that they're considering taking the company private alongside Tencent. So it's just all kinds of disarray at the company right now.
I'm calling it now. Tencent's gonna do a full acquisition of Ubisoft.
I don't know what the future holds for Ubisoft, but right now things are looking pretty bleak, and there's a lot riding on Assassin's Creed Shadows becoming extremely successful financially to keep Ubisoft afloat. But yeah, as I said at the beginning of my video, another day, another dead AAA live service, and the hope is that lessons will be learned from this, that the continuous failures of AAA live services...
No, the leadership's gonna blame the people who made the game not being good enough, and then they're gonna blame the audience for not trying it out and playing it and for being bigoted morons. That's what's gonna happen. It happens every time. I wonder if the timing of all this downward spiral coincides with a certain type of hiring practice. Guess we'll never know. Just move on, everyone. Yep, 100%. We need to get this DEI crap out. And now there's this new thing. It's called Bridge that I learned about. Look up Bridge, like wearebridge.com. It's crazy. And then go to IMAX, and it'll show all the companies that Bridge works with.
Will scare companies away from pursuing an endeavor that is more than likely bound to fail epically at this stage of the live service market saturation, and will actually force them to start thinking like creatives again and pursue projects for the sake of making something that is genuinely about fun and not about systems that can monetize. It's funny how Yves Guillemot, in his memo announcing the XDefiant shutdown, talks about how Ubisoft is a key player in our industry, a creator known for its unique and exceptional video games. And then Marie Sophie, another executive who announced the shutdown of XDefiant, talks about how they want to put the company back on the path of growth, innovation, and creativity, and make sure we can set you up for success when they've consistently been setting developers up for failure due to overpriced trend-chasing pursuits and just a general staleness in the types of games they tend to make. A lot of just the samey stuff. We'll see if history will keep repeating itself or if they'll actually learn from these mistakes this time. But I suppose only time will tell. In the meantime, though, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the implosion of XDefiant and what your experience has been like with the game if you've played it yourself, and what you think this will mean for the future of Ubisoft. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.
Ubisoft's gonna fail. They're on fire. Assassin's Creed is not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good. What'd they get? Like 4 or 5 extra months? Not happening. I don't think they can save it because they're gonna have to change everything. They ain't got it.